Kate Rubin. My name is Kate Rubin. My pronouns are she, her, and I am the organizing director at B Seattle. I'm joined tonight by our operations director, Tanya Moore, who is covering our tech support. I'm going to start us off tonight with a land acknowledgement. We are on the land of the Coast Salish peoples. I would like to recognize that we are occupying the traditional land of the first people of Seattle, the Duwamish people, past and present, and honor with gratitude the land itself and the Duwamish tribe. As we do this important work on these lands, we understand that our collective liberation cannot happen without Indigenous sovereignty. We encourage each of you to sign the petition for federal recognition of the Duwamish tribe. And if you're able, visit the Longhouse and pay rent to the Duwamish. You can learn more from Real Rent Duwamish. We'll include a link for them in the resource guide that will be sent after the presentation, and we'll drop a link in the chat. Our resource guide also contains contact information for the Renting in Seattle helpline, the Seattle Department of Construction and Inspections, also known as SDCI. They're responsible for enforcing landlord-tenant laws. The Seattle Office for Civil Rights, they're responsible for enforcing discrimination laws, including in housing, as well as a bunch of other organizations that provide services to renters. And we encourage each of you to get more involved with B Seattle. We're seeking table volunteers, folks hang up flyers, and people interested in developing their skills as part of a tenant leadership team. We host 2 rental councils every month, the Elder Renter Council, which centers renters age 55 plus, and the Seattle Renter Organizing Council. These councils were created for renters to work together to strategize and fight for renter protections that they feel are important to their communities, to give and receive peer-to-peer support for folks organizing in their buildings, to grow renter power and build a community. We'll drop links to sign up for the email lists in the chat. And I'm going to hand the mic off to Tanya to share some upcoming events, and then we'll jump into this presentation. Thank you so much.
All right. Good evening, everyone. So Friday, June 28th from 2 to 5 p.m. at 8914 Aurora Avenue North, the Aurora Commons. There, Seattle Ops and Aurora Commons are hosting a community health fair and barbecue. The DSHS mobile van will be there, on-site nurse access, free health kits, free health resources, HIV at-home test kits, COVID-19 test kits, and more. On Friday, June 28th, from 5 to 10 p.m. at the Volunteer Park Amphitheater, Trans Pride Seattle, produced by Gender Justice League. Trans Pride Seattle increases the strength of the two-spirit, trans, and gender diverse community and our allies, both within and beyond Seattle, through increased visibility, connection, love, and the celebration of our lives. Enjoy our stage show of all trans talent featuring live music, drag performances, and community speakers on community issues. Our tabling fair of 100 plus trans-led organizations, community groups, small businesses, and services used by our communities. And a beautiful evening in the park among community. Masks are required. If you can't make it, the event will be live streamed on the YouTube channel. And for more information, you can check the link in the chat. On Saturday, June 29th, from 12 to 8 p.m., 201 Broadway Avenue East in Capitol Hill, Pride Fest Capitol Hill. Capitol Hill's largest event is back, featuring an amazing array of performers from Capitol Hill and beyond, all to celebrate the 50th anniversary of Pride in Seattle in the city's historic LGBTQIA+ neighborhood. It's a street festival of family, queer youth, and adult programming spanning 6 blocks of Broadway and Cal Anderson Park, 3 stages, beer gardens, community activism, and fun. For more information, check the link in the chat. On Sunday, June 30th, from 12 to 8 p.m., 305 Harrison Street, Seattle Center. The 50th anniversary of Pride in Seattle, 3 stages, ASL interpretation on the main stage, a mural stage, now a band stage, and a drag stage, national, regional, and local performers, crafts, food, dancing, and fun. Best of all, it's free. Head to seattlepridefest.org for all the details or check out the Facebook. All right. Tuesday, July 2nd, from 1 to 2:45 p.m. online via Zoom. Solid Ground presents their Rent Smart webinar, Repair Issues and Landlord Duties. Do you need repairs in your rental and don't know if you or your landlord are responsible for fixing them? What exactly are your rights as a tenant and what are the landlord's duties? Solid Ground tenant counselors and legal representatives will explain how you can request repairs and what landlords are responsible for taking care of under Washington State's residential landlord tenant. On Wednesday, July 10th from 3 to 4:45 p.m. online via Zoom, Solid Ground presents Rent Smart. I can't pay my full rent. What are my options? Are you unable to make your rent this month? Curious about what you can do? Join Solid Ground tenant counselors along with legal advisors for a better understanding of what rights you have if you can't pay your full rent and what comes next. Thursday, July 11th from 6:30 to 8:30 p.m. at El Centro de la Raza, room 311, the Roberto Maestas Digital Literacy Lab, or online via Zoom. The Seattle Renter Organizing Council meeting. Join us for the July Seattle Renter Organizing Council meeting. We're going to be working on continuing the discussion of how to keep the city on track for the Office of Rental Housing Standards, as well as continue power mapping our city councilors to help us better advocate, organize, and educate. On Wednesday, July 17th, 12:30 to 2:30, in person at El Centro de la Raza, room 311 again, or online via Zoom. The Elder Rental Council will host a meeting. And on, Tuesday, July 23rd, 5:30 to 6:30 p.m., online via Zoom, the Rapp King County Regional Hall. The aim of the Resident Action Project is to build a statewide network of people who are directly impacted by housing and homelessness issues, who are leading the charge for social change. Gain organizing, advocacy, and policy skills by attending RAP's monthly regional Zoom meetings on the fourth Tuesday of every month at 5:30. Wednesday, July 31st, 6 to 8 p.m. online via Zoom is Seattle's July Building Tenant Power Workshop, Empowering Communities, Power Mapping 101 to influence City Council and champion your rights. Join Seattle for an engaging workshop designed to demystify power mapping. What is it and why do I care? And empower renters to advocate effectively for their rights. You'll learn the basics of power mapping, break down who holds decision-making power, and where renters can influence key decisions. You'll gain practical tools to navigate city council processes and effectively advocate for policies. Whether you're new to advocacy or looking to deepen your understanding, this workshop will equip you with the knowledge and confidence to make a difference. Friday, August 16th through Sunday, August 18th, location to be determined. Pacific Northwest Black Pride. The theme is a testament to our principles of being unapologetically Black in our positioning, where we are committed to collectively and courageously working for freedom and justice for all Black LGBTQIA+ people. Celebrating their 7th year of the PNBP weekend celebration, they're bringing 4 eventful days of fostering inclusion and advancing equity within the Black LGBTQIA+ community of the greater Pacific Northwest. And now, after that beautiful rendition of what's going on in the next couple of weeks, I'm passing it over to Kate again to introduce our speaker.
Thank you, Tanya. And I just realized that we actually forgot one event. Our friends over at Queer Power Alliance are hosting a housing forum on July 27th. That's Saturday at the downtown Seattle Public Library. So we'll make a housing fair. Thank you, Taylor. And so we'll make sure that that information is also included in the follow-up email with the so you can all join us there. And we'll be there tabling with a bunch of other awesome organizations. as well as, of course, our speaker later, Taylor. But now I have to hop back into my script. Sorry. Our first speaker of the evening is Barton. Ebo is a passionate artist and educator dedicated to creating healing spaces and driving social change. Proudly embracing their mixed Black and Filipino heritage, Ebo's identity as a transgender and non-binary queer individual highlights the value of intersectional identities. As the Director of Housing Services for Lavender Rights Project, Ebo advocates for inclusive housing opportunities for LGBTQ plus communities. They also serve on the Community Advisory Board for Creative Justice Northwest, using art-based interventions to transform the juvenile justice system. In addition, Ebo represents King County as a Washington State LGBTQ commissioner, working to uplift LGBTQ voices and address their needs at a state level. Thank you so much for joining us tonight. Go ahead and take it away, Ebo.
Cool. Thank you so much for inviting me to participate with y'all. I'm gonna try to do what I can here to share my screen. We'll see what happens. Let's see. Pardon me for just a moment. There it is. There you are. Let's see if I can do it. So it's saying that I don't have access. uh, what should I do?
Fanya.
Sorry, I'm looking
No problem.
to see because it says you're still a co-host.
So weird. Okay.
Let me try removing it and re-adding it.
Sure.
We can change the settings to allow all participants to share screen. If folks are feeling safe with that settings change, I would be happy to do it.
Yeah, I don't know why it's being weird. It's everyone's okay with that. I can change it right now. Is everyone okay?
Thank you. Sorry for the delay, everyone.
That's on us, but also just since we're letting Ebo get set up, if you are not supposed to be speaking tonight, please do not share your screen.
Oh, there we go. Okay. I think I can do it now. Cool. Let's go to Can you all see that? Cool. Awesome. So my name is Ebo Barton. As mentioned, I'm the Director of Housing Services for Lavender Rights Project. I'm going to tell you a little bit about Lavender Rights Project as an organization. Of course, because this is my department, I'm going to talk a little bit more about our Housing Justice Department and give you a little taste of the other things that we do in our areas of impact. So here goes this. Lavender Rights Project, we elevate the power, autonomy, and leadership of the Black, intersex, and gender diverse community through intersectional legal and social services. We utilize the law as an organizing principle to affirm our civil rights and self-determination. And we disrupt oppressive systems that target our communities and lead to disproportionate levels of poverty, housing disparities, gender-based violence, And you can see there on the lower portion, the lower photo is a campaign we did called We Are Family Too. And it featured some interesting, some dangerous and violent things that happened to Black trans women in our communities. And it was a specific conversation that we were having with Black communities regarding the violence that Black trans women experience. This is the end scene after she experiences a lot of violence out in the world. She sits down with family where she's able to be herself and, experience joy. So our areas of impact are legal services, housing justice, policy and movement building. In our legal services department, we offer free legal advice to Black and Indigenous community members, direct representation, like in areas like legal financial obligations, arrest consequences, pre-detention trials, expungements, and bail issues. And then we also host regular legal clinics based addressing urgent matters and decriminalization. So our next one is very soon at our offices, and we are doing a Know Your Rights clinic for folks that want to come and join us and learn more. Our housing justice department, which I'll go a little bit more into, as I said, consists of our permanent supportive housing facility, our wellness nexus, and then we also do advocacy and education to reach all of those different ways in which housing, we're impacted by housing, right? And then we have our policy department. They have a strategy, they do advocacy, they build coalitions, educate the community on policy issues, and a lot of research that gets done in order to properly get the appropriate information out into community, to stand up to our politicians, etc. And then we also have our movement building, which disrupts trans misogynoir at the city, county, and state level. And if you're not familiar with trans misogynoir, it is the intersection of race and gender, in which specifically Black trans women experience more than any other set of identities. And then there's a fun video that you'll watch that I'm in. So just look out for me in this particular video I'm about to show.
Lavender Rights Project is a advocacy-based organization. We do movement building, community organizing, and policy work through the lens of Black trans feminism.
We're establishing community power through a wide range of activism that is keeping our community out of state control and in safe and dignified housing that hears, acknowledges, and moves by their needs.
We are facing right now a year of the most anti-trans legislation, high levels of poverty, chronic houselessness, and discrimination.
The problems that are facing Black trans community are not just about Black trans people. We feel like if we can take care of Black trans women and the intersectional needs, we'll take care of our entire community. We have legal services, building a world where Black people can thrive without fear of mass incarceration. We are making sure that our community is housed and taken care of. We're pushing for economic justice and policy where guaranteed income for trans people can be the norm. But it's not really about the direct support services that we provide. It's getting commitments from our government to protect Black trans life.
We're an organization that's really rooted in radical love. So having an organization that's doing work for Black trans community and has a staff that's primarily composed of Black trans people, I think is really powerful.
I think that we are at the beginning of creating a foundation of a really great system of care for our community members,
and a model for what is possible when we have the resources to take care of one another, not just in Washington State, but across the United States. Cool. I hope you saw me.
Lavender Rights Project
do it
is
again. Oh my God. Okay. I hope you saw me. That was fun. So the house, it is one of the major projects of the Housing Justice Department at Lavender Rights Project. And we aim to invest in the overall wellness and health in our community. As we all know, in Housing First, that it starts with having housing, right? And by providing services within that housing that meet our physical, mental, and spiritual wellness. Another one that I added here is social wellness. A lot of times in poverty, we're isolated. We don't have the means to be out in community and connecting with other people. And so adding that social wellness aspect, and our core operating values in the permanent supportive housing facility will be a happy, healthy, healing, honored, and housed community of Black gender diverse individuals living in Capitol Hill, which is historically queer and trans. You'll see in the photos here, the two on top are mock-ups of, and because the building is still under construction, of our community room that would include a computer lab-ish area. That's that little purple nook that you see in the left corner there. And then a clinical space as well as a case management space. As the world has changed a little bit, a lot of our gender affirming medical care via Queer Doc will be via telehealth. And then there will also be mental health services that is also via telehealth. So having those rooms in which folks can have privacy that is not experiencing all these things in their homes, they do have access to these rooms that can allow that. Also, HIV and STI testing, prevention, care referrals, and education, professional development, and then social wellness events and workshop. And one of the things we did also is having a community counselor on site for any mental health needs and any crises that may happen with our current tenants. One of the things that we mirrored from ballroom culture is the house mother is having this very maternal role, whatever gender they might be, having this role that takes care of folks as individuals in their everyday lives, right? So we have the in-house community counselor that will live on site, the house mother who will also live on site, myself, and the housing programs manager, which will make sure. So the way I think about it is the housing programs manager what sort of manages what the tenants and our clients do. The house mother takes care of their everyday lives, and then the community counselor thinks about their mental health. So thinking about folks in a more holistic way, right? The three photos at the bottom, again, the building was still under construction, so it does, some of them are a little dark, but having those things in your studio unit of your own refrigerator, things we take advantage of in our everyday lives, right? Like the washer and dryer aspect is in every unit. And the reason why is because one of the first things that's taken away from you or that you don't have access to is those little bits of dignity and privacy, right? Like I can leave my laundry in the dryer because I can, right? Like I don't have to do all of that, right? And then having the dignity and privacy of your own private bathroom. And so because a lot of the time, again, shared bathrooms, shared spaces, places that are not ours, to do things like that, these very private, intimate things that we do of like taking a shower or taking a bath in our own private spaces. So just showing those examples. And then another thing that we've added as well is the wellness nexus. And what that is that it enhances our physical, mental, spiritual, and social wellness through our resources and referrals. So ensuring that any resource that we give to our clients does have an understanding of Black trans bodies and Black trans life. And then also ensuring that these folks feel comfortable going to these resources and referrals. So if you do need someone to show up with you because you don't feel like you can advocate for yourself, we will show up to be with you, right? Telling you what to expect, what to say, all of those things, to make sure that, because a lot of folks don't realize, because queer folks, we're just so powerful in the way we take care of our communities, that oftentimes that we can identify, for instance, identifying as homeless is really hard for us because I stayed with my friend on their couch and it was fine, right? But in reality, I don't have an address that's attached to me, so I am homeless. And knowing that when you go to ask for help, that they are looking for these particular terms and particular ways in which other folks live. And so making sure that folks understand that, and then asking for the spiritual and social wellness of where can I go to church that accepts who I am. And then, or maybe it's as simple as, and I know that a lot of folks are online will appreciate this, where can I get my tarot cards read? Right? Like that understands my lifestyle and my body and the way in which that I deserve to be seen and understood. And then we also engage in advocacy. We participate in government advisory committees, always a subcommittee, never a dom committee, and then educating our housing organizations that are that we're related to. I hope y'all caught that. But anyway, educating our housing organizations in the community about how to appropriately communicate with us, or how to appropriately, because I can't tell you how many calls I've gotten from other organizations that's like, oh, we have a Black trans person here, and I'm like, great, what do you want me to do about that? You know what I mean? Like, and it's just, well, you can provide the resources you have, right, to this person, just making sure that you're understanding how to appropriately address that person. Or maybe it's not even that, it's that you don't know that you can just offer them what it is that you have, right? Or whatever services you were providing. um I think that's pretty much all. I'm happy to take any questions. I haven't looked at the chat, but I will. These are studio apartments, as I think you already got to that. They are studio apartments. We do have a lot of policy and procedure that we're going over, but you know, working with families, because I know that our communities are not without children sometimes, right? Like, I think that that's one of the things that often gets overlooked, is our communities do have children. And thinking about those policies, also thinking about multiple partners and how those systems would work in these cases. So making sure that we're thinking about all the different ways in which we do live very regularly, and normalizing them and making sure that we're able to. Anybody else have any questions or comments? Cool. But my information is right there on the screen. If there's any questions that you might have that you don't feel like you can ask in this space, or maybe you want to connect with us, we'll be in Capitol Hill, and I'd love to connect with any small businesses, organizations in the community, because we, you know, as LGBTQ folks know, not everybody agrees that we should have all the things that we need. And so it would help to build that foundation of support in that neighborhood that is historically like ours. Let's be real. Historically where we've been and who and where we'll be for years to come. But please go ahead and ebo@lavrights.org or lavenderrightsproject.org. It's just a little longer. And then you can also follow us on all the channels, most of the channels, at Lavender Rights, and or you can meet us on our website. But thank you so much for having us, and I look forward to hearing everybody else. So thank you.
That was awesome. And I wrote it in the chat, but I just need to say it out loud. Always a subcommittee, never a dom committee is going to live in my brain and also my heart forever. Thank you so much, Debo. Our next speaker is Matthew Bromley. Matthew is the housing program manager with Entre Hermanos, a Latino LGBTQ plus nonprofit in Seattle. He's been working with LGBTQ plus communities for the past 10 years in various places in North America. As a first-generation Latino, trans person, and previously homeless youth, he understands firsthand some of the unique barriers folks can face with housing. At Entre Hermanos, he serves a largely undocumented and ESL population seeking assistance navigating housing systems. Take it away, Matthew.
Hey, can folks hear me? Yes, perfect. Okay. So first of all, thanks so much for Evo for that wonderful introduction to Lavender Rights and everything. I unfortunately don't have as many cool visual presentation today. So you will have to forgive me for just being a speaking, but I wanted to come from an aspect of more a little bit of a conversation between back and folks, and I'll be checking chat there. I'm going to talk a little bit about Entre Hermanos, kind of like a little bit of my background. And what I've been doing so far, because our housing program is very, very new, and it's with the community that most folks don't hear a lot about. And then kind of wanting to have that conversation with y'all about your thoughts on those aspects. So first of all, a little bit about me. So Kate, thank you for the introduction there. So I've been with Entre Hermanos for the past 3 years almost now, this year. In next month actually, and I started as a housing case manager first. Before that I was living in Canada, before that I was living in Pittsburgh, before that I was living in Chile, so I've been in a lot of different places, and I have been previously homeless. I was a homeless youth back when I was about 17, 18 in Boston, and that was about for a 6-month period, so it's not a period that was very long, nor was it very short. So I have that kind of personal experience of having been homeless as an LGBT youth in a big city. And that's kind of resonated a lot in the work that I do at Entre Manos, I see folks with a lot of similar backgrounds, especially with our LGBT youth or trans youth especially. And that's basically what brought me here to do this kind of work. So a little bit of Entre Hermanos. So Entre Hermanos, if you guys don't know about us, we are an LGBT Latino organization. I will share my screen just to show our website real quick. Give me 1 second. Let me see if I can figure this out. There we go. Can folks see my screen? Awesome. Okay. So Entre Hermanos are a Latino LGBT organization. We've been around for the past 34 years now this year. We started first as a Latino kind of community group focusing on HIV care. The original founders saw that there was a big lack of resources available for Latinos in the United States that wanted HIV care. Most of the care that was there available at the time, one was limited because of the epidemic, but also was very not culturally appropriate for the folks that needed it. So that's where those roots came from. But now we have a lot of different services. So we still do HIV care, we do STI testing, programs that we have. We do immigration assistance, especially for folks who are undocumented and looking to basically get their documentation. We do prevention services, so we help folks with PrEP. And just this year, we officially started our housing department. So we originally started with our HOPL program, so folks living with HIV and AIDS. And that's expanded to now 3 more additional programs, a PrEP program for folks that are needing housing assistance that are on PrEP, another one for folks who are living with HIV, part of the Ryan White program. And we have one in particular, which is through a grant through Best Starts Your Kids, where we assist folks who are LGBT families. And in the time that we've been, that I've been here, I am now the housing supervisor for the department. And I've seen a lot of interesting adaptions with the work at Entre Hermanos. Before I go into the audience that we serve, I'm going to go a little into the staff that we have, because our staff is, the demographics of our staff is very important to the work that we do and why the work that we do succeeds. Let me just see if I can figure out how to switch screens real quick. Give me 1 moment. There you go. So rough numbers. So we see about 7,000 folks a year that just visit our office in general. About 180 folks that we have are clients that are enrolled with HIV care here at Entre Hermanos. About 400 or so far that we've enrolled in the PrEP program. We do about 700 STI HIV tests a year. 5,000 safe sex kits get distributed around yearly. And we, so far in the last year, we had 120 folks that have received legal relief. So that's their case was taken by one of our lawyers, or we kind of helped them halfway through their legal case. So about our clients and the folks that work here. So 90% of our clients are Spanish-speaking, undocumented immigrants or refugees. And inversely, about 75% of our staff are immigrants or refugees, and 86% of us are Latinos. So we are primarily a Spanish-speaking organization. That's the primary language here. But we will help folks in all areas of life. About 98% of our clients are also navigating multiple systems of care. So that means that clients are coming to us not just for HIV care, but they're coming for housing, they're coming for legal, they're coming for a myriad of other services. And of our legal clients, 95% of those are transgender asylum seekers. As a side note, also of our staff, 75% of us are LGBT and 27% are trans. So a fourth of our staff at least are trans folks. So a little bit of the importance of that and what we see in the community in terms of housing. A lot of the barriers that we work with our clients are particularly with the lack of documentation. One of the things that we try to push a lot with our housing justice and our advocacy is in the policies around what documentations are needed when someone applies for housing. Most times when someone applies for housing, they are looking to have a social security number, to have pay stubs that they can present. And those two are very big barriers for a lot of folks who are undocumented. One, because folks a lot of times are receiving, if they are working, they're receiving money under the table, they're not receiving traditional pay stubs. And if they're undocumented, they likely might not have a social security number. So at our agency, we try to do that advocacy to work with agencies, to work with property managers, to make that connection and give the clients that are in though have those barriers a case for housing, essentially. Unfortunately, a lot of the laws that are there don't protect our clients. So we're kind of working on good faith of the property managers, and working with landlords is not a very great thing to do a lot of the times, because landlords are, well, but it goes to show the importance of targeting that community. One of the reasons I also mentioned trans folks is that we see a very disproportionate amount of Latino trans women in particular who are in unsafe housing situations or are just unhoused in general. About 3/4 of our trans clients are in unstable housing, which is a very, very big number. So these are folks that most came undocumented. Most have had to do sex work, non-consensual. Most have had to do basically kind of work around ways in order to have housing safety. And those are the folks that we kind of try to target the most to kind of get that safety for. And the reason for our agency existing and for kind of bringing those folks in is that, one, the language barrier. So a lot of times when those folks are looking for resources outside, a lot of agencies just don't speak the language that they do. And the other side is the cultural competency, which is very, very key for us, where it's not so much just speaking the language, it's knowing that someone has the same lived experiences as you, and not only speaks the same language, but is using this, like, has the same brain as you, essentially, the same part as you. So right now it's an uphill fight still for the folks in our community in a lot of different ways. But one of the main things I wanted to be here is just kind of like highlight those aspects that folks a lot of times don't think about, where we have these folks in their community that kind of left in the shadows a little bit, because by the government standards, they don't exist on papers, therefore they don't exist. But I just want to say, Leslie, thank you for having me here today to be able to have these conversations and to talk with you folks. And I will drop in the chat also my contact information, as well as just the general information about Entre Hermanos. But thanks, y'all.
Thank you so much, Matthew. We appreciate it. All right, let me do my own sharing here. All right. Next up are speakers from the Seattle LGBTQ Commission. Please welcome Brett Pepowski, to Andrew Aashiofu and Rye. Is it Rye? Yes. Okay. Just wanted to make sure. Rye Armstrong. Brett joined the Seattle LGBTQ Commission in 2021 and now serves as one of their co-chairs. Brett works as a data analyst for a housing and clinical service provider and developed and presented improving the experiences of trans and gender non-conforming clients in housing and shelter programs at the 2021 Housing First Partners Conference. Outside of work in the commission, Brett can be found serving as a beach naturalist, volunteering for a queer camp, playing for the local queer marching band, and contacting legislators. Andrew is a proud Nigerian American born in vibrant Houston, Texas. Growing up in the culturally rich atmosphere of Nigerian heritage and the dynamic blend of Houston's diverse communities, Andrew developed a deep appreciation for diversity from an early age. A compassionate advocate, Andrew's passion for social justice and LGBTQ rights became evident during his formative years. Inspired by the struggles faced by marginalized communities, committed himself to making a difference. With a heart for advocacy, he embarked on a journey to amplify the voices of those often unheard. And in pursuit of his passion for health equity, Andrew pursued a degree in advocacy for people living with HIV. As the HIV/AIDS epidemic continued to impact communities, Andrew found his calling in advocating for those affected. Guided by his experience as someone living with HIV and a commitment to destigmatize HIV, who became a vocal advocate for people living with HIV. His efforts extended beyond awareness campaigns as he actively worked to improve access to healthcare and break down barriers that hindered progress. Andrew continues his journey, remains steadfast in the commitment to social justice, health equity, and the LGBTQ community. Bry Armstrong, they, them, is an American trans, non-binary artist and activist focused on pushing the overtime window of our society toward an equitable and sustainable future. Born in Seattle, they began their creative journey at a young age, studying with the Northwest Choirs, the Fifth Avenue Theater, and the Seattle Symphony, which resulted in a Grammy Award nomination for contributions to the children's album, The Schubert. Armstrong continued their academic pursuits at Central Washington University, where they graduated with a Bachelor of Fine Arts in Theater, and at American University, where they graduated with a Master of Arts in International Relations. When living in New York City, they performed in various productions off-Broadway and on multiple sets of shows produced by HBO. Upon returning home to Seattle, they ran for city council as a progressive Democrat and a Democratic socialist, hoping for radical policy changes in the face of a looming climate crisis. Today, their activist focus is on labor organizing as a SAG-AFTRA delegate to MLK Labor and on the National Council of Actors Equity Association. Their artistic focus continues to be on creative projects dedicated to the pursuit of truth and breaking down the binary of the world around us. And I would just like to say, I feel woefully lacking in my life right now reading those biographies. So you all take it away, please.
Yeah, well, thank you so much, Tanya. We love a full bio read. Andrew, Brett, how do you want to kick this off? What do you think?
Hi everyone. I think we could set briefly like how housing has impacted us as individuals. You go, right?
Okay, yeah, I'm happy to. I was really lucky when I moved to New York after undergrad to find a rent stabilized apartment after about a year and a half of searching and living in different sublets. Even when I was on my national tour, I was crashing on friends' couches or literally sleeping on the A train in housing insecurity. At 21 years old, I don't think my lower back can handle that ever again. But now I look back on those times and I'm like, wow, I can't believe I even did that. I think I lived in 12 or 13 different places within the course of my first year living in New York City. And when I left New York, that average rental price had gone up to $5,000 on average for the entire city. So housing is going to be a crazy crisis in our lifetimes. And the only way to fix that is to protect renters with tenant protections, increase supply, and also I believe in rent stabilization as a tool for counteracting that. Some people do not. I think it is a good tool, but that's a personal opinion. So that's a little bit of my experience in housing. And, I feel like so many people are forced when they go to university or college. You have to live on campus your first year and you live in the dorms, and that's your first experience with what housing is. And then suddenly you're trying to live off campus because that's where the better parties are, or that's what you've heard. You can get cheaper rent than what you get on campus. And so I feel like we shift this stability of housing onto an educational experience for many young people in this country. And then suddenly at 22, you're like, whoa, where am I supposed to go? And you have to qualify and you don't have a credit score and all these things. So I think our jobs as fellow queer people is to make sure that other people can have the tools necessary to be able to navigate this crazy, crazy housing situation. So that's a little bit about my story. Maybe I can pass over to Brett or Andrew, whoever wants to go next and talk about their lives a bit.
Yeah, hi. I could jump in here. Hi, Andre Aashiofu. Housing for me is personal. I was unhoused and homeless when I was diagnosed with HIV. In fact, I tell people back then it was AIDS. So technically I had very, very high viral loads. For me, I look at housing from the perspective of healthcare and the impact in our community, because you cannot combat housing without healthcare as a whole being involved. And I'm not talking about mental health care, because everyone needs mental health care. People will definitely have mental breakdown when they are outside of a comfort zone. So it's not, for me, I don't see mental health as a reason for being unhoused, but consequences of being unhoused or homeless. And I think as a city and as a commissioner, my goal is to ensure that we as a commission, one, bring forth the voices of the community in regards to housing, ensure that with the city council we have presently, that the progressive renters' rights that we've gained over the years are not rolled back. And so we have a lot to discuss, and I'll pass it over to Brett.
Hi, so I have been really lucky throughout my life. I have not experienced housing instability or homelessness. I've worked at a couple different, well, one was basically exclusively a shelter and short-term housing agency. That was when I lived in Chicago. And now in Seattle, I've worked for about 5 years at a housing, human services, clinical services organization that tries to integrate a lot of services. It follows a housing first philosophy, or tries to, no one's perfect. But so I've worked frontline as kind of a medical case manager, and then now I work as a data analyst. So I've been able to see some different sides of the housing industry. I guess that feels weird to say, but just yeah. So no, that I guess that's my experience. And I think there's everyone here would know that there's a really long wait list to get into housing. It's difficult there. Even if you can get into housing, that there are certain people who might be targeted to get evicted sooner, right? Especially if they don't have enough supports. So that's where things like permanent supportive housing come in, if it's done right. But a lot of different people have a lot of different housing needs. So that's where my experience lies.
Yeah, I can kind of roll off of that too and just kind of talk about a little bit about the commission and what I'm seeing in the current market. I'm really excited about all the commissions at OCR, but specifically the Seattle LGBTQ Commission has really grown and shown a lot of leadership this past year, thanks to a lot of the things that Brett and Andrew have done it as co-chairs. But I'm really excited to see I-137 either go to the ballot or be passed by the city council. I'm really excited to see what the city council will do about that. It's still not enough money, and the state really has to step up and create more supply. The MFTEs are not enough to fill the need of all the demand right now. And also, I think part of the housing problem is not also the amount of housing, but the type of housing, the zoning. So 70%, I think, of Seattle is single family homes, if you look at the lands. And so how can we quickly urbanize those spaces without losing the culture of those, or displacing historically important groups from their homes and their neighborhoods in the city? So those are some of the things I'm seeing right now, and I'm really excited to see I-137 go through. But I'm curious, Brett, Andrew, or anyone who wants to speak to this, what do you think are some solutions to housing, or some of the problems you see that may not have solutions right now?
I know from my end, from we as the commission, the community relations committee under the commission, we are also looking into HOPWA and the impact in the community. So what can we do as a commission to ensure that we push more funding for HOPWA for people living with HIV? We're also looking at protecting our community. I will use Capel. Capel is supposed to be the queer neighborhood, but a lot of queer people now and cannot even afford to live here. And that also affects organizations that provide services to the community. And so when I look at housing and how can we ensure that organizations like the ones here are able to still stay in the community to provide services for the people in the community, because that's part of housing. And I think one other thing that I'm excited about and that we're trying to really push is to see if we can have an increase in the family poverty level for people to qualify for programs like MFT and all, because we have to put in inflation and cost of living. People might make certain amount, doesn't mean that they can afford where they live, or does it because they have other expenses. And so using a very low FPL to get people qualified for housing program in a city like Seattle especially is a very dangerous thing. Yeah.
I think you both have covered it, but I'll just put in my second plug for, yes, it's very important to upzone. I think that's the phrase I've heard used, right? Is to increase density, to basically just increase the supply of housing. But also we're very behind in terms of the amount of affordable housing, like designated affordable housing that we need in the area. And so I would hope that when legislators are thinking about, oh, how can we build more housing, they're specifically like setting aside units that will be affordable, will continue to be affordable.
And I want to plug in here that we as a community, we need to change and we need to do a lot of work in the messaging on people saying being homeless or being unhoused is because of drugs. We need to push against that narrative, because I'm going to be sarcastic here, because if people that are doing drugs are homeless or unhoused, then people in all the celebrities in Hollywood, all the people in gated communities should be living on the streets as well. But we need to understand that it's copism. Mental health, substance use, chemical dependency are things that we all need to come together. We need more investment from King County in healthcare, but we need to change that narrative, because it causes the solution to be monolithic and it ignores the other aspects of housing, like affordability, like accessibility, like accessibility, availability, and affordability. And it also doesn't help other people, people that have jobs that they cannot even survive with the income they make, but they are working, but they have to do things like couch surfing, sleep in vehicles. So I urge everyone on this call, let's change that narrative together. Matches your hands.
Oh no, I just wanted to say thank you, Andre, for kind of giving a bit more context of that connection between the healthcare and housing, because like from our own personal experience, I could give numbers for that, because we started we received a HOPA grant last year, and we've been working with our population, like Latino primarily population, to kind of see how support with housing helps adherence to HIV medication. And it's only been positive. Like, we have folks who are directly having their healthcare affected because they lack housing, because they are affected by housing. So we've seen their medication adherence go up, their doctor's visits like be more regular. And it's not because these folks are, like you said, it's like it's not that like a drug use issue, it's not like these issues, it's like it's the housing primarily, and it's not a monolithic thing, it's an all-rounder thing. We were very privileged that this year we're working with King County to do with the DOH, I should say, to start a prep program specifically for housing. So that's going to be the first one in Washington. And we already are seeing a lot of folks that are lining up on a wait list for this, because again, one of the things we're seeing is that we're seeing numbers for the Latinos in particular, but in general also go up for cases of HIV, syphilis is on the rise, these things. And we're kind of tackling things and like, oh, it's just housing in general, like just make more housing, but we're not seeing the issues that are causing that housing, like that healthcare aspect. So the folks that are in our prep program, for example, if they are having issues with housing, they're having issues complying with their prep. If their prep is not as adherent, we're going to see more cases of HIV and so on and so forth. So I just want to say thank you, India, for like drawing that point forward, because we see it directly with our clients. We see those numbers.
Thanks. I work in the healthcare community, a federally qualified healthcare center down all around South King County, sexual health, and I see the increase in HIV is happening, and syphilis is also going up. And I've had two patients died last year because they could not get some medications they needed. And we just, next thing we heard, they were dead because they were unhoused. And to me, that was very personal. And when you try talking to some elected officials, they just generalize the monolithic drugs and mental health, not knowing that that's a copism from what's happening. And all. Thanks so much, JJ.
This is JJ, and I've been living in Seattle since the 80s, and I have lived in 5 countries, fluent in 11 languages, and very familiar with the gay culture as well as housing needs around each and every of those 5 countries that I've lived in. But much more importantly, I think that it is the queer, gay, LGBTQIA plus culture that has to be fundamentally changed, and the root causes of some of the very legitimate needs of housing that we are advocating is prominent and necessary. But at the same time, too, that it is battling the dimension of what is against our advocacy for housing. That is much more important to be dealing with than just, oh yeah, somebody's legitimately needing housing and they can get housing, and through various avenues they can access housing. And I do not believe that is excessively difficult, but the contrary of it is extremely difficult. If they have mental challenges or fundamental health challenges, then there are different layers that obstructed them for access of equitable accessibility to housing. And this is much more important about the intrinsic culture and the root issue of housing, more so than just advocacy. I applaud and commend all of your advocacies and your backgrounds, where you're coming from for do the advocacy work for housing. But at the same time, too, is that we must never leave the fundamental root issues of where housing needs are, and focus on that simultaneously, work in tandem with what is against our advocacy. I think that's what I would like to mention. And I encourage everybody to continue to what we are doing, which is extremely, extremely important. Housing is very fundamental. Healthcare is very fundamental. Some of these fundamental human needs has to be basically met, but how they are being met is critical for each and every one of us to focus and be on that particular track.
Thank you, JJ. I think that's brilliant. I mean, one of the questions I think you'd spoke about was how do you change the culture within the queer community towards pushing for more housing and to house our neighbors. I remember running for city council. I got coffee with, as Andrew knows, a million people, and you talk to a million people. One of my fellow queer leaders in the real estate space said, listen, I don't care what you do with the houseless. Can't we just put them on buses and send them to Enumclaw or something? Like, there must be space to put them somewhere. And so I think for me, part of that change in the culture is to make empathy central to the conversation and to make sure that people understand that the resources are right here in Seattle. Like, all the options for people and why people are living in this city is because there are resources here. You can't just send people off to some rural place that will have no resources for them to just dwindle and die. That's not acceptable to me or to many other people. So I think it's about educating the ignorant and also making sure that people can understand the lived experience of others to hopefully change their mind. Kate, do you have something?
Right. Do you want to answer the comprehensive plan question in the chat?
Oh, yeah. I can take a stab at it unless you'd rather, Andrew. He says no. Yeah, Bruce Harrell's comp plan, it's not enough. And I think it all goes back to a lack of progressive revenue streams. Washington State alone is 49th out of 50 states for the worst taxes, the most regressive tax system right before Florida. And so we need equitable tax income to support the services and programs that people need, not only in the city, but in the state of Washington. And so in a deficit budget year, for some reason, we're going to choose a lack of revenue over saving people's lives. And so I think the comp plan needs to do more. I hate it when it gets political, but that is the reality of the world we live in. So hopefully it can keep progressing. I'm not crossing my fingers, but we'll see. We'll see where it ends up. I don't know. That doesn't really answer your question, Rachel. But you just said, please address it. So that is my address. Oh, another chat. Yeah. So because of Tim Eyman, and no municipality can raise property tax more than 1% every year. So the legislation, the legislators in Olympia would have to make a new law to overturn that previous initiative. And that's why we have to elect really nice progressive candidates in Olympia to overturn all that stuff. I'm going to hand it over to Kate because she has her hand
up. Thank you. And thank you all so much for this conversation. And I'm just going to say, I am on the Renters Commission, and we are so disempowered and shut down by the city currently. Like, there's 5 of us. They won't appoint new commissioners. And so seeing a commission that is working together and has these shared values is like really inspiring, and I hope that we can get there someday. I also wanted to touch on something that came up, which was the gap between qualifying for subsidized housing or subsidized healthcare, for that matter, and being able to actually afford to live. In Seattle, where the like median apartment is like $2,000, and if you're earning 80% of the AMI, like, maybe you're doing okay. But if you're in that like 50 to 80% range, like, you're not really qualifying for a ton of services, nor do you qualify for a ton of like reduced apartments. And that's part of the reason that like social housing is so exciting to me, is that it gives you a chance to for lack of a better like terminology, like, pull yourself up by your bootstraps. And so if you were able to, like, if you needed to be on subsidized housing and you got a better job, you wouldn't lose your subsidized housing. You would just pay more for it. And and that just enables people to grow. And it also is this like stopgap for if something happens to you and you're not able to maintain that same level of income, that you don't lose your housing, that you can change to a job that isn't killing you, or if you have like a medical issue, or if you retire, or if you need to take care of family, that you will always have housing. It's really incredible. And then Rye, you were saying that like Seattle is where all the resources are, and I think you were talking about like the services that we have that are existing, the shelters and the food banks and whatever else we have to help people. But it's also where there's so much like concentrated wealth that we're not really tapping into. Like the latest numbers show that there are 4 billionaires and 130 centimillionaires. It's people with hundreds of millions of dollars living right here in the city. And then, you can walk out and visibly see our housing crisis on almost any block of the city. We are not taking care of each other, and the people who got rich existing in this community and frankly taking advantage of the labor of the people who exist in this community for the most part are not giving back their fair share. And I think that we as progressives really need to be like pushing that and not being told like what we need to allow, because I feel like we're not the ones like setting the standard. You're saying Tim Eyman made it so that property taxes can't go up. These like rich lobbyists are fucking up the system for decades. We can't have rent control because it's literally illegal. So we're fighting for rent stabilization, which is a worthwhile fight, something that we definitely need. But also it's going to exclude a lot of people. The legislation that did not pass last year excluded buildings that were less than 10 years old, which would have meant that like for people who need accessible units, like with wheelchairs, who often have to wait for a building to be built, they won't be able to live in a stabilized unit basically ever. And so they're like, it's important, but we always need to be like considering like how can we make it better, and how can we of course protect what we have. And with that, I want to like leave this open for any more questions for our commissioners before I hand it off to Taylor to talk about what we've fought for and won, and how to keep that and get more. Okay. Oh, Mr. Wong, go right ahead.
Whoops, yes, right. I think that there are 3 key words I would like to further elaborate for what we have actually mentioned, one of which is be empathetic. I think that empathy has to go both ways. It's just that what I'm empathetic with, what I experience may not be somebody else's experience. So the second word of it is reciprocity. How if we are demanding somebody to have something for us, we want to have something to offer them too. Efficaciously, the third word is that what your needs may not be my needs, but my needs may be what you can meet for my needs. So in those words, we can actually see more in depth, in a deeper way, to see that, oh yes, just an example, people who are richer, yes, they also have needs. They do not have housing needs, but they have other needs. So if we meet those needs, then they can see our needs, and then we are reciprocally be more efficacious in the efficacy that we are doing. Just an example, and that's all.
Thank you, everyone. Our emails are in the chats, and we are building a community committee where we gather community leaders and members to tell us what's needed. So please reach out to us to get added to that. I think we leave now. Thanks, Kate, and yeah, thanks everyone.
Before we end, Brett, how can someone join the LGBTQ Commission if they want to?
Why, right, I was just typing that in the chat. So we have rolling applications. If you live and or work in Seattle and you are 18 or over, you can go to our website, which I'll put in the chat. Honestly, you could probably just email one of us. We'll also get your application to the right spot. But then you'll go through an interview and application process, and hopefully we'll confirm you. But also, if you just want to come and work on a project with us, we can take community members to work on specific projects within our committees. You don't have to belong. You don't have to like, go to every meeting and be a voter or anything like that. You can just come work on a project with us, or you could stop by even one meeting and see what we're all about. So I'll put our website in the chat also. Oh, thank you, Ryan.
Thank you all so much. I also, before I hand the mic off to Taylor, just want to note that like when we talk about housing justice, at least here at B Seattle, we always want to center the voices of the people like most impacted. So when we talk about empathy for billionaires, like I don't think that we need to make those things equal, because they are not equally harmed by housing injustice, and all of their needs their basic needs have been met. When we're talking negotiating, sure, I understand that from like a logical perspective, but we're not there. We have to focus on what communities need, and that means centering the people who are most impacted. And so with that note, I want to hand it off to our last speaker, Taylor Farley. Taylor is a dedicated nonprofit professional with 10 years of experience in the sector, following 15 years as an entrepreneur in healthcare, professional organizing, and instruction. Joining Queer Power Alliance in April 2020 as a program and development manager, Taylor became executive director by the end of 2022. They are committed to addressing social and economic justice inequities and are proud to work alongside community leaders. Identifying as genderqueer, non-binary, and working class, Taylor champions solidarity and representation within their work. Thank you so much for being here, Taylor. Take it away.
Thank you for having me, and thank you to all of the amazing people that already spoke. And thank you for addressing that. Yes, billionaires have had everything they're met, and they are not coming first. I am not going to try to cater to them. They can cater to us. That's all I have to say to that. So Queer Power Alliance, I'm just going to give you a quick overview of me and then Queer Power Alliance. I am somebody, and I don't have to be on the front. I am somebody, thank you. I like seeing other people. I am somebody that I've lived a long time, and I've been unhoused, unsecured housing off and on since I was 18 through actually 16. I got kicked out of my house because I did not choose to live by the rules of my parents, and I became homeless. I lived in my car for a while. I crashed with 12 other people in Tacoma in one studio apartment. What else? I've lived in my sister's basement for a couple of weeks at a time. I've lived in various different places where people let me crash, and been on the street also, until I was in my, I want to say in my late 20s. Yeah, I hit late 20s, and I finally became more stabilized. And for one of the reasons why I ended up doing this, and more specifically why I wanted to work for Queer Power Alliance, is because I realized the gaps of economic justice and housing justice and health justice. They all are so intercombined. And Queer Power Alliance, that's what we focus on, is that without housing, we don't have good health. We don't have health. Without economics, we don't have opportunities to health care, access to health care, and even with job securities, we may still not have health access. And then housing is kind of the glue to all of those things, right? And you were talking earlier, Kate, about guaranteed income, a type of guaranteed income. And I think that that is something that would be really useful to and for people when we're talking about housing, because guaranteed income keeps us housed, and then also keeps us in the when we're housed, we're able to access, because we're not trying to access healthcare, access finding a job, access going to appointments and such, rather than just trying to survive. When you're unhoused, basically what you're doing is trying to survive, right? So Queer Power Alliance, my brain is just like exploding from what everybody was saying. So, Queer Power Alliance, what we do is we do advocacy work, and mainly we're building collective power for LGBTQIA liberation. And what that looks like is that we get to be able to live in our own bodies, have autonomy over our own bodies, and be housed, have income, and be able to make choices about our own selves and how we live. We do this through our advocacy, our education, and leadership development. We also do research. And right now, speaking of research, we're working with Entre, Hermanos, Matthew, and Pocan to do research in South King County. We've done housing research around the areas in Seattle and South King County. And right now we're doing a survey, which is open and live. If you live in South King County and you are LGBTQ, you can go to our website and take the survey. We are compensating folks $25 to take that survey, but you do have, you have to be LGBTQ and you have to be living in South King County. So, and just so you can go onto our advocacy page, and at the very bottom, it shows screen share. It shows the little blurb here. So why we're doing the survey, it's really important work, and we're asking people to talk about their housing, voter, because voting really is important, their transportation and job and health. Those are all the conversations. And then you would go here. And if you do go here, it's going to ask you for a code. And this is the code right there. Pride SKC. And this code is case sensitive. And then the other thing that I wanted to talk about is that what's really important to LGBTQ in our organization for LGBTQ liberation is that we believe that all LGBTQIA folks and communities are entitled to stabilized housing, livable wage, access to healthcare, political representation, and safety. And when we're talking about that, much like what Kate was saying, when we're talking about LGBTQIA, we're talking about those that are most affected by these inequalities. And when we are able to leverage and lift up those that are most marginalized and affected by these inequalities, then we all gain from that. And so our organization works in solidarity with immigrants, women, people of color, seniors, elders, and working class individuals. That's kind of the little bit of Queer Power Alliance. We have passed, and not just us, we work in these collaborations. We work in 6 different collaborations, and we work with over 30 different organizations. Be Seattle, everybody that's here today, we work with. So I'm in good company with my friends and fellows here. We have passed a lot of stabilized housing pieces, and they're pieces that came up over the years that were needed. And if those securities go away, we go back down to the very insecure areas, right? Where landlords have the ability to do whatever they want. And the last one that we worked on collectively was capping $10 per month late fees. And there's still a lot of junk fees that landlords can do, and there's still a lot of areas that they're still trying to get funds from people that are already struggling and just to make rent. So those are things that we've been talking about. And in fact, the LGBTQ Commission, I met with them a couple of months ago and last month, and gave them the Stay House, Stay Healthy's junk fee information, and they will be addressing some of that with the city council and providing making sure that these fees aren't being unnoticed. I don't know how they're going to address them exactly, but I know that the city council having this great committee and commission there as a voice of community is really helpful. So I love that. The other things that we've fought for is throughout different areas, different areas of housing over the years. Some of them have some loopholes and some corrections need to be made, like the first in time. And these laws definitely were put in place to help minimize, and still sometimes landlords find ways around things. For example, I've been told that some community members, and more specifically trans folks, have been asked to go to the space to see if they really want it. Like, don't you want to see it before you get there? And then I can send you the application when you know that you really want it. And that's a form of weeding people out. And that's a form of whether it's thought of as premeditated or not, it is definitely setting up for a bias. So we put some of these things in place and they're still getting around it. So these are different ways that we can still make corrections and enforce additional laws around it. I loved when Ray said, I'm for housing stabilization. I am big time housing stabilization also. And we have to keep moving towards that over time. It's not going to happen overnight, much like a lot of these other laws that we put in place over the last 10 years have not happened overnight. So I'm grateful for this group. I'm grateful for the work that we have done, and just remembering that there's been hard times, and we're not going to not see hard times these next couple of years. But I think oh, I can't say the word. My stutter got in there. Perseverance will make it continue.
Thank you, Taylor. And it's important to note that a lot of these protections that we've fought for over the years are not guaranteed to stay as strong as they are currently. The landlords hate first in time. I was part of the small landlords stakeholder group in like 2021 or 2022, and that was one of their biggest complaints. And they were saying that they want to be able to use it to like help people to be able to be able to like choose the applicant who needs it the most, and not the applicant who was first. But frankly, that is like deeply rooted in racism and homophobia and transphobia, because the people that like landlords are most likely to want to help would be like single cis het white women. And it's so dangerous to overturn this law, but it's also it was the first of its kind in the country, and so it was incredibly progressive. And right now we have a city council that thinks that we were hasty in our progressive laws. Tori's noting they also hate the roommate law. That's again another city specific law that would be easily overturned. I think something that we haven't really discussed much that I heard council kind of picking at was right to counsel, because that is now a statewide protection. But the statewide protection only guarantees it for people who earn less than twice the federal poverty level, or are on some kind of subsidy. And we all know in Seattle that you can easily be earning too much money to qualify for a subsidy, or be twice the federal poverty level, but be unable to afford rent or afford a lawyer. And that is something that is very dangerous. There's been a lot of talk from SDCI also about like aligning our rental protections with the state protections, even though overall our protections are significantly stronger. So we need to like continue having these conversations with our council members about how important they are. And then the other thing that I feel bad mentioning it because it's so boring is that it's about to be budget season, and so council is going to be talking about like how to spend the money for the city, and they've already said that they don't want to generate any progressive revenue. They have warned us that their services might be cut. They've given a 24% increase to the cops, and so things are looking grim. And this is where community input is so important. We saw how quickly the community responded when there was potential to indefinitely freeze the equitable development initiative funds that were funding programs to help the people of the city, including but definitely not limited to affordable housing. And these are programs run by and for the community, and they're not they're not necessarily
Yeah.
developers with money, or people who like have been doing this for decades. And so the level of standards that they're trying to hold the folks who have received those funds to are not necessarily reasonable, and they're asking for additional reporting. And this is all big and gross and messy. But it's just important to know that like any advocacy or change that you want to see at a city level starts at the budget. If you like to see workshops like this, if you'd like to do organize like any kind of community organizing around tenant protections with BSeattle. BSeattle is primarily funded by the city. If we don't receive our city funds, we'll probably go under, honestly. And I don't know how many other like really, really small community organizations are in that same but this is something that we have to start the conversation about, because those conversations are already starting. And Taylor, you have a hand up.
Yeah, I just want to, hi Dee. I just wanted to amplify that, yes, it's not just whether or not these organizations would get funded or not. All of the organizations that we work with, a majority of the organizations we work with, do get funded by the city or the state in different ways. And it will be catastrophic, not to just the organizations, but to the people that we're serving. We are the direct connection to community that council don't have. And a lot of times I remember the EDI, and I went, and there was an enormous amount of people that showed up. And the majority of those folks were organizational folks. They were people that worked within the organizations, and they were directly connected to some organization in some way, shape, or form. And a small minority were the general public that were either accessing those. The conversation needs to be with community and bring renters into those conversations, which is really difficult when we are scrapping by and people are struggling to make ends meet, and we're making 2 jobs become normalized to just keep rent going and nothing else. But you're not poor enough to get subsidies, but you're not rich enough to have luxury. And that's the status quo that we live in. And getting folks to be able to volunteer to go and testify has been a struggle for our organization. And I would love to see more of that, and that hope, and people being able to do that, because they're going to listen more, even more so, when we have those voices there. I'm going to put in a quick plug, Tanya, and then I will be momentarily quiet. We have 2 different events coming up. Kate mentioned it earlier on July, what is it? July 27th. It's on a Saturday at the Central City Library downtown. We'll have a housing resource fair. And at that housing resource fair, we're going to have so many different organizations. We're inviting 33 different organizations. We'll see how many of those can attend. Everything from housing access to renters' rights to health, and some around health, and then there'll be food. So it's opening up for LGBTQIA folks and Black and Brown folks, so that we can definitely be connecting people directly to those different accesses and resources. And then we are doing another event in September 19th, around housing stabilization. We're meeting in the 43rd district, which is Capitol Hill, at the Miller Community Center. And it will be 5:30, I believe 5:30 to 7:30. Is just 2 hours, and bringing people in that have been affected by rent increases, and especially on Capitol Hill, because we've asked our representatives in the 43rd district to be there to talk with community and be asked questions. And this is another LGBTQ focused, but that doesn't mean it can't be open to general public too. But we are asking LGBTQ folks, even if they aren't living in the 43rd district, have they been pushed out of the 43rd district? Because that is become an increasingly expensive area to live in. So those are two different events. Yes, I will be emailing those to and connecting folks. So just wanted to put that out there, that your voice really does make the difference. And that's why our organizations bring situations like this together.
I just wanted to acknowledge Brett's comment that departments are making their budgets right now. So for those of you that are interested in how to better understand your council person, the power mapping next month will be informative on how to find out who funds your council person, what connections you might have, the important things on how to get their attention. Did you go to the same college? Do you have the same? It's things that we don't like to play, but unfortunately, politics is it's a chess game. And you know, I admire Taylor's optimism for surviving the next few years. Coming from where I came from, and I say this, and I've been saying this more and more because I'm seeing it. For those that know me, I have a background in politics, running campaigns, and then also reproductive justice. And I also have spent a large portion of my time in Oklahoma. And Oklahoma, believe it or not, used to have a progressive governor and a progressive legislature. So in the last 10 years, the change that has happened relatively quickly. And it started with school boards, which we started to see this year in Washington, and then moved to city councils. So I am less optimistic that things are just going to be rough. I am more optimistic that it's going to be a hell of a time. So, you know, I don't say that to be sad or depressing or whatever. I've just seen it live, and I've seen it happen in multiple cities and states. That now is the time to start learning how to play the chess game, so that even you can get people who are diametrically opposed to what you're trying to do to actually vote for things if you frame it in a way that they understand economics, their children, etc. So yeah, that's my spiel for saying that Brett is correct. Now it's time to start talking to people, but next month we'll also give people a lot of tools. So that's all I got.
Thank you, Tanya. And I wanted to draw attention that Ebo put in the chat that Lavender Rights Project is doing Know Your Rights with police arrests training and panel by and for Black and Indigenous communities tomorrow at 6 to 7:30 p.m. It's going to be in person at the Lavender Rights office in Capitol Hill or on Zoom. So the link is in the chat as well as a graphic. And Taylor also put the housing resource fair in the chat. And I'm kind of working a little bit backwards, but relating to what Taylor was saying about having a panel about rent increases in Seattle. Our pals over at the Washington Low Income Housing Alliance are also looking for these stories to help build up their campaign towards rent stability. So they're gathering photos of rent increases that people in Washington have recently experienced to show lawmakers as to why they need to stop excessive rent increases. And they noted that big money landlord and realtor lobby groups are telling lawmakers that excessive rent increases aren't happening or aren't happening often. We know the impact of excessive rent increases. So with your story and the photo of your rent increase, we can prove that they're wrong. Our collective stories are our collective power, and together we can create a Washington where everyone has safe, affordable housing. And then at every workshop, we like to just end with an action. I got too far ahead of myself. There is the action, but I forgot. I'm sorry. Back to the budget. If you are new to budget advocacy, the solidarity budget, they have existed, started in 2020 about the 2021 budget. It's a coalition of community members and community organizations who are envisioning what the city can look like if we invest deeply in communities instead of spending that money on policing our communities. So we're kind of in the early stages of it, but we'll be coming out with some easy talking points and like guides on how to give public comment, and there will be meetings. So if you want to get more involved with budget advocacy and aren't sure where to start, that would be like an easy way to get in, and you can always write your own talking points and of course engage if you think that there's something that is missing as it comes out. But it's certainly like a year to get involved, and I hate talking about it because I'm like, this is the most boring thing in the world, and until I was like directly involved in an organization that was reliant upon these funds, like it would have been really hard to talk me into caring about it. So I'm trying to like come up with like talking points that would resonate with people who aren't spending time thinking about that, because budgeting is it's a huge part of advocacy, but it's also like not the exciting part. But it's to make a difference part. Anyway, so at every workshop, we have a little action that the attendees can take just in the moment to comment here from Taylor. We don't need more policing, we need more housing. That hell yeah. So we like to have an action at every workshop that all attendees can take in the moment, and they can share with their community members. That'll just take a couple minutes. And so I wanted to share this action today that comes from the National Low Income Housing Coalition. We talked about the Washington Low Income Housing Coalition. This is the national one. So I'm just gonna share a few stats real quick, stuff that we've already almost covered, but we've got stats now. So LGBTQ plus individuals, especially transgender people and LGBTQ plus people of color, face severe housing challenges, including discrimination, harassment, eviction, and homelessness. Federal law does not consistently protect LGBTQ plus people from housing discrimination. So 48% of older same-sex couples applying for elder housing face discrimination, according to the Equal Rights Center. Meanwhile, HUD data shows same-sex couples encounter significant prejudice when applying for rental units nationwide. Discrimination in housing is rampant for transgender individuals. 25% of trans people reported experiencing housing discrimination in the past year. 70% faced mistreatment in shelters, and 44% left shelters due to unsafe conditions, according to the 2015 U.S. Transgender Survey. So as we celebrate Pride Month, we're emphasizing the urgent need for housing justice for the LGBTQ plus community and calling on advocates and others to support the new National Tenants Bill of Rights. Robust tenants' rights can enhance housing security and equity for LGBTQ plus individuals. So the National Tenants Bill of Rights includes the right to fair applications and leases, freedom from discrimination and harassment, habitable homes, reasonable rent and costs, the power to organize, and safeguards against eviction. These rights are critical for housing security in the LGBTQ plus community. And it's important to note that some of the things that they're asking for are already protections that we've won here in Seattle. And Seattle is actually leading the way currently on some of these like protections that we need nationwide, and to get this passed would help to cement these protections in for ourselves, because as we said, they could go away at any time. This council could overturn them pretty easily, and having them be a national standard would be a much stronger protection than just our city protection. So we are asking for you to show your support for the National Tenants Bill of Rights by contacting your members of Congress today and encouraging your networks to do the same. And we'll drop a link in the chat to endorse the National Bill of Rights here. And I already put the rent control survey in there from the Housing Alliance. And so with that, I think we're going to wrap things up, but I just wanted to give folks one more moment. Is there anything else anyone wants to say before we let everyone go?
May I ask Evo a question?
Yeah.
Okay, cool. Cool. So I was curious, so I appreciated that Matthew you talked about some of the specific barriers or like cultural mismatches that your clients like face with, I don't know how to phrase it, but basically I'm wondering, like for Evo, what you were talking about, looking for culturally competent services like for your tenants and for the people that you serve. And I'm curious what exactly it is that you would look for Black trans people that would make you say, like, this is a good service, this is culturally competent.
I don't know that I know of any examples I could give you in Seattle. But what I can say is that like many of the things that were already touched upon, as we talk about centering Black trans women and femmes in our analysis, like for instance, you know, a lot of our clients are calling landlords, as Taylor was talking about earlier, calling landlords trying to get apartments, but as soon as they are seen, that application all of a sudden doesn't exist or is in the back of the line, etc. We also see a lot of folks. We get a lot. My understanding is that Black trans women face a lot of misgendering in communities, and that's across different communities more often than their masculine counterparts or other races. So and treating them in the gender that they know themselves to be and have stated that they are. So and then finding the like the effects of racism standing in the way of actually being seen as themselves or accessing any kind of resource has always been a barrier. I think that another thing we face is like just building the trust back from our communities, because so many systems have failed them over and over again, is that we're offering them a government resource, for instance, and they're like, well, I don't want to do that, right? Because I've been harmed in a particular way by this particular system. And then building that trust back, having someone to go with you and advocate for you and actually say that that was wrong. And let's try to fix that, has always been where we've started, like starting with what has happened to you already and how can we make it so that you can either access that resource or get around it in a different way. I know that was a roundabout way of saying like they're like it's like really hard to pinpoint, and that, you know, historically we've always been forgotten about in the ways in which like I think that one of the bigger things is like having someone to talk about hair care, for instance, and what that looks like and what it involves. Specifically with our folks is that our grooming supplies and products are vastly different than what's being offered for free. So things of that nature. I don't know if that's helpful to answer your question.
Yeah, thank you.
Go right ahead, Matthew.
Oh, and I just wanted to expand a little on that too, because from like the Latino communities, like we have Afro-Latinos, we have Black people in our communities, and expanding on what it was said, where the colorism that exists even within what folks consider their own community is so like insidious and detrimental. So we have folks even in our communities where they feel left out of our community because of colorism and racism that exists there. So even if we have like Afro-Latinas in particular that come to our services, our service being like Latino services in generals, they might feel discriminated even there. So the resources are even more like limited in that sense. So like organizations like Lavender Rights Project, POCAN, like those are so key because being served by folks that even just look like you is just it's another world, because you don't, like for us, you don't have to explain yourself anymore. You know that you won't have to go through those that what do you call it in English? What do you call it in English? That the justification of your person basically to the person that's speaking to you. But yeah, I just wanted to echo what they were saying there.
Thanks.
Okay. Thank you all so much for spending your evening with us. And I lost my train of thought for a second. I would like to end this meeting with a quote from Emo Barton that said, "Always a subcommittee, never a dom committee." Thank you all so much. Have a wonderful night. We'll see you all soon.